It's a brief chapter, only 16 verses, but two very noteworthy accounts happen in these 16 verses. We've been following their journey, the children of Israel, and we've seen that since they've come through the Red Sea, they've looked for water, and they had bitter water, and God cast a tree into the water and made it sweet for them to drink. We see that they were hungry, and that God provided them manna and quails, and just in a miraculous way took care of their needs. And now we come to chapter 17, and as all of us go through trials in life, we try to learn from those trials. We try to grow. As we walk through hard and dark times, we hope that the next time we go through a difficulty in life, that we'll have more faith, that we'll maybe trust God a little bit more, or maybe have grown from our situation to be a little bit more spiritually mature. And that's what our hope and our goal is as we go through hard times and trials. And so tonight we're going to see the children of Israel faced with an opportunity to show any growth that they may have had in their trials and in their journey so far. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Bible here. Exodus chapter 7, we'll look at verses 1 through 3 to begin. Exodus 17, verse number 1. It says, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, Give us water, that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? So we see here kind of a familiar refrain. The children of Israel are thirsty again. They've come to a place in Rephidim where there's no water. If you'll remember, in Marah there was water. It was just bitter. And God cast a tree. But this time they come to a place and there's no water, bitter or sweet, for them to drink. And, they have an opportunity to exercise faith and to show their growth and to go to the Lord and not to be angry or murmur with Moses. And verse 2 shows us that to this point, there's still not much growth there. They're still upset with God's man for leading them out of Egypt. They're complaining about water again. There was no lesson learned to this point. They're just complaining about what they don't have. And again, they accuse Moses of bringing them into the wilderness to kill them. It just amazes me how they keep saying that. You've brought us out here to kill us. It's just wild to me that these people could see how God has provided so many miracles to this point. And then just to look back and be mad at Moses and say, see, we knew you brought us here to kill us. It just astounds me that they could feel that way. But I guess when we look in our situations, how many times do we get in a hardship or a trial and this time the Lord's done with me? We do that, and it's just really a lack of faith on our behalf. And we'll get to a place and say, this is the Lord's final. He's going to just do me in this time. He's teaching me a lesson once and for all. We start to feel that way, and that should not be our first thought. As we grow in our faith, we need to grow and mature and build on that, so that when we do come to hardships and trials, we can look back at the way that God provided and say, you know what, I don't know what He has in store this time, but I'm just going to trust Him and see how this all plays out. Now, that's easier said than done. But that's the proper attitude and the proper heart to have when it comes to time like these. All right, verse 4 says, And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, What shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. So Moses does the right thing. He goes straight to God, and he says, What do you want me to do with this people? They're about to kill me. And, whether they were really going to pick up stones and kill him, or he just felt that way. Nonetheless, he's frustrated, or angry, or scared, or all of the above. And so he goes to the Lord and says, What am I supposed to do? They're about to kill me. Well, God doesn't lead us where He's not going to provide for us, and so God begins to give Moses the plan. Look at verse 5. It says, And the Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. So he says, I want you to take the elders, the leaders, the men there of the children of Israel, go with them, and take that rod with you again. And we remember how many times this rod has shown up. You know, when he called Moses, he said, what is that in thine hand? And then when Moses smote the river and it turned to blood. And then when Moses held the rod up and the seas parted. And now we're going to see another situation here where Moses will have that rod. So he takes this rod and he says, and go. Verse 6, behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb. And thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he tells Moses to do something very strange. Go stand on this rock, take your rod, smack it, and water's going to come out of a rock. I've not ever seen that happen. I've never seen water just flow out of a rock. But it happened that day. And let's not lose the typology here. Let's not lose the type that we're seeing. The rock was smitten, and water came out for all the people to drink. You know, this is a type of Christ. Again, we see another type of Jesus here in the Old Testament and in the children of Israel's journey. Jesus, the rock, he was smitten, the Bible says. And then he says in John 7:37 that he is the water of life. You see, we have another type of God's provision. Yes, he's providing water for them to drink right here. And for them, that's what it's about. Water to sustain themselves another day. But the type is that Jesus Christ, the rock, would be smitten, and he would provide water that yields everlasting life. We saw last time that the bread, the manna, it was the bread that was provided them another day's sustenance. Whereas Jesus is the bread of life, and he says, if you'll take of me, you'll live forever, he says. You'll never have hunger again. So it's another type of Jesus here. And Moses goes up to the rock. He smacks the rock with his rod. Water comes out, and they're able to drink. Verse 7, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Interestingly enough, those words, Massah and Meribah, obviously have meaning to what's going on. Massah means test. They were entering a test here, another test from God, another trial. Massah means test. Meribah means strife. They were tested, and the outcome was strife. Not faith, not trust, not just going with what God's man was leading. Faith lacked. There was testing and there was strife on behalf of these people. And it reminds us that when we're tested, let us not respond with strife. Let's respond with faith and faithfulness. Moving on, we come to verse 8, and the scene changes. God has provided water for them again from a dry old rock. And now, guess what comes? Yet another test. But this time it's not basic needs. It's not water and food. This time it's an enemy. It's an old enemy. It's an enemy that they're going to deal with on and on and on. Verse number 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. Amalek comes and attacks Israel there in Rephidim. Amalek, according to Genesis 36:12, is Esau's grandson. These are the Edomites from the lineage of Esau. There's always conflict between Esau and Jacob. Always. And here's Amalek. From the lineage of Esau, they come and they attack Israel. Verses 9 through 10. And Moses said unto Joshua, that's the first mention of Joshua, by the way, choose us out men, and go out. Fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. A couple of things to note here. He tells his captain Joshua, take them, and you're going to fight. And I'm going to go up to the top of this hill. God didn't ask him to take the rod this time. He says, I'm going to take it with me. It's a symbol of God strengthening this man. It's a symbol of God saying, I am with you. Up to this point, God has said, take that rod with you. Do something with that rod. This time, he says, I'm taking that rod with me. He knows there's something special that God has given him that is a symbol, as a remembrance, as an ordinance, if you will, to remember that God is with him. It's just a stick. There's nothing magical about it. No hocus pocus in that piece of wood. But it is something that will remind him of God strengthening him and his presence. He takes that to the top of the hill. He will lead. Moses says, I will lead. Joshua, you go into the battle. I'll go to the top of the hill. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to be the visible leader, he says. But what I love in verse 11, in verse 10, it says, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Aaron and Hur went with him. And here we find help in the ministry. A man who has God with him, but he has some men who have come alongside of him and said, we're going to go with you to help. Help in ministry is necessary and refreshing. It's necessary and refreshing. And it doesn't matter if you're a pastor, a Sunday school teacher, a greeter, an instrumentalist, a choir member. It doesn't matter what your ministry in the church is. Help is always refreshing and is necessary. Nobody's an island. And it gets lonely at times serving the Lord. And when you have somebody who will come with you and serve, that's a real blessing. And here we see these two men go with Moses as he leads. All right, verses 11 through 12. It says, and it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. I have kind of a weird mind when I read these things, and I can just see Moses, like this, and he's getting tired, and Israel's winning, and he just puts his hands down to rest him. Maybe doing this to get the blood flowing, and he sees Amalek taking over, and he says, oh no. And then Israel starts winning. And I can almost see him for a second going, just to see if that's really what's causing it, I don't know. I think I probably would have done that, is this really, wow, look at that. No, got him. No, and I don't know. That's weird. But anyway, it says when he has his hands up, Israel's winning. When his hands go down, Amalek is winning. And so, now we see the need for those men who came alongside of him. Verse 12. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. What a blessing that is there. That just encourages your heart as somebody, you're trying to serve the Lord and you have people come to your side. And I'll tell you what, good help is faithful help. Good help is faithful help. Everybody likes talent. Everybody likes ability. And thank God that He gives us talents and abilities. That's a blessing. But you know what? Good help is faithful help. Somebody who will just be there when you need them. Somebody who you can count on is going to be there by your side. They may not be the best at what they do, but you better believe every time there's something going on, they're going to be right there next to you. And that is the blessing of this story. These men sacrificed position. Think about how humble that is to say, I don't have to be the man, but I'm going to stand here and hold his hands up. There's no glory in that. They're not going to get they're not going to be like, oh boy, look what those guys did. They held his hand. No, there's no glory in that. They weren't in it for the glory. They wanted to help God's man. And what a blessing it is to read that they came alongside and said, you know what, we're just going to stand here. And maybe they got tired too and they just draped his arm over their shoulder. I don't know. But here's the point. Good help is faithful help. And they came right to his side and stood there until the battle was over. What an awesome thought. What an awesome thought. Don't be tricked into thinking that you have to be really good at something to make a difference. Yeah, we should sharpen our skills and so forth. But your faithfulness makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference. And we see that these men are just there by God's man. What a blessing. Verses 13 through 14. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. He beat him up real good. Got the victory. Verse 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. And rehearse it in the ears of, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. God gave him the victory, and then he says, record it. And when it's recorded, you need to remind Joshua of this. How interesting is that? That Joshua, the man who was leading the battle, would need to be reminded of the victory. And you know, it's true though. Sometimes after God gives us a victory, at times, there's a letdown period. You know, whenever we would go on a mission trip and you see God do incredible things and you come back just so excited and so fired up for God, that next week is one of the hardest weeks of your whole year. Because you get back to what your normal schedule is and you're like, what am I doing with my life? You know, last week I feel like I was making a difference. I was watching God do things, and here I am, I'm making peanut butter and jelly today. You know, it's after a huge victory, sometimes there can be a letdown, and I believe that he had them recorded in that book so that Joshua could go back and read that and gain encouragement from it. And that's why God wrote this book, because this is our encouragement. This is where we can go back and say, can God do it? Yeah, he can. Yep, let's go. You know, it's a good encouragement for us. And he did that for Joshua and gave him a record of it. All right, next, verse 15. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi. Jehovah Nissi, that means my God is my banner. My God is my banner. He made an altar and called that place Jehovah Nissi. My God is my banner. And God is a banner. You think about what a banner is, a standard. You know, somebody in like Revolutionary War type days, when they would take the standard, the flag bearer would go ahead. And the troops and the band would rally behind that flag bearer and they'd march. And guess what happened if that banner fell? If the person carrying the flag got shot and fell, guess what happened? They didn't leave that banner. Somebody would go pick it up and march on so everybody knew where they were going. That banner is what led them to where they were going. It was their rallying point. It was what when they saw the banner up, they fought on. When they saw the banner up, they thought things were still going well. And Moses says, my God is my banner. And he's never going down. He's always going to be there. He's always something we can rally to and follow after because he's never going to stop. He's from everlasting to everlasting. And Moses wisely called God his banner. And so tonight we have to recognize God is our banner. People, institutions, sometimes even churches will let us down, but God never will. We can always follow God. And finally tonight in verse 16, it says, for he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So he needs this banner that's going to last forever, this strong banner, this leading into victory. He needs that to last because God said he's going to have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Now we know that Egypt is a type of the world. We've said that many, many times. Egypt is a type of the world. Amalek represents the flesh. You see, you can come out of the world. You can get away from it. We're told to. Separate from the things of the world. But the flesh is always with us and is always going to be a battle. Amalek is a type of our flesh. It's going to be a battle from generation to generation. That's a battle that, though we can win, is going to be going on until we get to heaven. You see. But we have a banner. We don't have to lose. We have a banner that we can follow who will lead us to victory. We got to follow him, though. And so we see some type here in this chapter. We see yet again the strength of God, the provision of God for water and for victory. And we get encouragement to know that we have a God who will never stop, who we can always follow, and who will give us victory over our flesh. What a blessing tonight.